One of the men charged in connection to last month's stabbing in the Blessing Hospital parking lot pleaded not guilty in court today. 20-year-old Dylan Test is charged with attempted murder, armed violence, and aggravated battery. In a previous hearing, Adams County Assistant State's Attorney Josh Jones said Test and 19-year-old Heaton brothers were caught on camera pinning the victim between two cars. He says that's where they stabbed the man and battered him. The Test is due back in court in December. And brothers appeared in court about a half an hour before Test's arraignment. His attorney Donald Heck says several DVDs that the state gave him didn't work when he tried watching them with brothers at the jail. His case was continued to November 14th, and 2 weeks ago, brothers pleaded not guilty.